The double life. You know, sweetheart, there are some stories that start so beautifully, you almost don't want to believe what comes next. This is one of those stories. So settle in, darling, because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about the people closest to you. This story begins on a sunny Tuesday morning in September in a small town called Millbrook. Population 12,000. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where secrets are supposed to be impossible to keep. But oh, how wrong they were. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, 38 years old, mother of 2 beautiful children, married to her high school sweetheart for 17 years. If you saw Sarah at the grocery store, she'd smile at you with those warm hazel eyes and ask about your day. She volunteered at the local food bank every Thursday. She never missed her daughter's soccer games. She baked cookies for the school fundraisers. Sarah's husband, David Mitchell, was the kind of man other men envied. Handsome in that casual way, with silver streaks just starting to show in his dark hair. He worked as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. Good job, good salary, good provider. Every morning, he'd kiss Sarah goodbye at exactly 7:15, climb into his silver Lexus, and drive off to work. Their daughter Emma was 15, bright and beautiful, with her mother's eyes and her father's determination. Their son Lucas was 12, obsessed with video games and basketball, the kind of kid who still hugged his parents goodnight without embarrassment. From the outside, the Mitchells were perfect, picture perfect, Facebook perfect, Christmas card perfect. But you know what they say, don't you, darling? The brightest smiles sometimes hide the darkest secrets. Sarah had no reason to suspect anything. Why would she? David came home every evening around 6:30. He attended parent-teacher conferences. He coached Lucas's basketball team on weekends. He made love to his wife on Saturday nights with the door locked and the lights dimmed. He remembered their anniversary every single year. For 17 years, this was their life. Steady, predictable, safe. Until the phone call. It was a Wednesday afternoon, around 2 o'clock. Sarah was folding laundry in the living room, one of those mindless tasks you do while your brain is somewhere else. The phone rang. Not David's phone. The landline. Nobody called the landline except telemarketers and Sarah's mother.
Sarah picked up, expecting to hear her mother's voice asking about Sunday dinner plans. Instead, she heard a woman, young, maybe late 20s. The voice was shaking. "Is this Sarah Mitchell?" the woman asked. "Yes," Sarah said, confused. "Who is this?" There was a pause, a long, heavy pause that made Sarah's stomach tighten. "My name is Rachel Porter," the woman said. "I need to talk to you about David." Now, sweetheart, let me tell you something about intuition. When your gut tells you something is wrong, it's usually right. Sarah felt it in that moment, a cold wave washing over her entire body. "What about David?" Sarah asked, her voice steady even though her hands were trembling. "I'm sorry," Rachel said, and she started crying. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know." "Didn't know what?" Sarah demanded. "That he was married," Rachel sobbed. "That he had children. That he had a whole other life." The laundry basket fell from Sarah's hands. Clothes scattered across the floor. A red sock landed on the couch. Sarah would remember that detail forever. The red sock. "What are you talking about?" Sarah whispered. And then Rachel told her. If you're already hooked by this story, do me a favor, darling. Hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. And drop a comment telling me if you've ever discovered a secret that changed everything. Go ahead. I'll wait. Rachel Porter had met David Mitchell 3 years ago at a medical conference in Chicago. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep just like him. They'd started talking at the hotel bar. He was charming, funny, attentive. He told her he was divorced, that he had no children, that he traveled constantly for work. They started dating. Long distance at first. He'd visit her in Chicago every other weekend. He'd call her every night at 9 o'clock, right before bed. He told her he loved her after 6 months. He gave her a key to his Chicago apartment after a year. Chicago apartment. Those 2 words hit Sarah like a freight train. "What apartment?" Sarah asked. "The apartment on West Monroe Street, the 1-bedroom with the view of the park. He's been living there for 3 years. I've been staying there with him on weekends. I have photos, I have receipts, I have everything." Sarah sat down on the floor, right there among the scattered laundry. Her brain couldn't process it. David had an apartment in Chicago. David had been living a double life for 3 years. "Why are you calling me?" Sarah asked, her voice hollow. "Because I found out the truth yesterday. I was at his apartment looking for an insurance card in his desk drawer, and I found a folder. A whole folder full of documents. Marriage certificate, birth certificates for 2 children, property tax bills for a house in Millbrook, photos of you, photos of your kids." Rachel's voice cracked again. "He's been lying to both of us, and I thought you deserved to know." Sarah's mind was racing. Every business trip, every weekend sales conference, every late night at the office, had it all been a lie? "Where is he now?" Sarah asked. "I don't know. I confronted him last night. He left. He hasn't answered my calls. I think he's running." Running. Sarah looked at the clock. 2:15. David would be home in 4 hours, or would he? Did he know that Rachel had called? Was he already planning his escape? "Thank you for calling," Sarah said quietly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Sarah hung up the phone. She sat there on the floor, surrounded by laundry, and tried to breathe, tried to think, tried to understand how the man she'd slept next to for 17 years could be a complete stranger. And then, darling, Sarah did something very smart, something that would save her in the weeks to come. She didn't panic. She didn't cry. She didn't call David screaming. Instead, she got up, walked to David's home office, and started looking for evidence. Now, sweetheart, let me tell you something about betrayal. It doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in slowly, like poison. With every drawer Sarah opened, with every file she examined, the poison spread deeper. David's home office was small, neat, organized. He kept his desk clean, his files labeled, his papers sorted. Sarah had never had a reason to go through his things before. Why would she? She trusted him. Trust. What a fragile, dangerous thing. Sarah started with the filing cabinet. Tax returns, insurance documents, mortgage statements. Everything looked normal.
Everything looked like the life she knew. But then she found the credit card statements. David had always handled the finances. "Don't worry about it, honey. I've got it covered." And Sarah had let him. She'd been busy with the kids, with her part-time work as a teacher's aide, with running the household. She'd trusted him. There it is again, darling. That word. Trust. Sarah spread the credit card statements across the desk. 6 months' worth. And there, hidden among the gas station charges and grocery store purchases, were other transactions. Hotel rooms in Chicago, restaurants she'd never been to, purchases from furniture stores, electric bills for an address in Chicago. The apartment, it was all real. Sarah's hands shook as she took photos of every statement with her phone. Evidence. She needed evidence. Then she found the phone records. David kept paper copies of everything, organized by month. Sarah flipped through them, scanning the numbers. Most were familiar. His office, his mother, his brother, the kids' schools. But there was one number that appeared dozens of times, sometimes multiple calls in a single day, always in the evenings, around 9 o'clock. Sarah grabbed her phone and dialed the number. Her heart was hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. 2 rings, 3 rings, 4. "Hello?" A woman's voice. Rachel's voice. Sarah hung up. She couldn't speak, not yet. She kept searching. In the back of the bottom drawer, hidden under a stack of old tax returns, Sarah found a shoebox. Inside the shoebox was another phone, a small, cheap burner phone. She turned it on. The battery was almost dead, but there was enough charge to see the text messages. Hundreds of them, all to and from the same number. Rachel's number. "I miss you already. Can't wait for Friday. Love you, babe. Sweet dreams. Book the reservation at that Italian place you like." She scrolled back. The messages went back 3 years. 3 years of I love yous. 3 years of secret meetups. 3 years of lies. And then Sarah found something else in the shoebox. Something that made her blood run cold. A second driver's license. It was David's photo, but a different name. Michael Harrison. The address was the Chicago apartment. Okay, darling, pause for a second. Can you imagine finding out your spouse has a whole other identity? Drop a like if this story is giving you chills. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because this story is about to get even crazier. Sarah stared at the fake ID. Michael Harrison. David had a fake name. He'd been living as 2 different people. Who was she married to? The question echoed in Sarah's mind as she put everything back exactly where she'd found it. She couldn't let David know she'd been searching. Not yet. She needed time to think, time to plan. She glanced at the clock. 4:30. David would be home in 2 hours. She needed to act normal. She needed to pretend everything was fine. Sarah went to the kitchen and started making dinner. Chicken parmesan, David's favorite. Her hands moved automatically. cutting vegetables, seasoning meat, while her brain screamed with questions. How long could he have kept this going? Forever? Was he planning to leave her? Did he love Rachel? Did he still love Sarah? Were there others? Other women, other names, other lives? At 6:25, Emma and Lucas came home from soccer practice and basketball. They were loud, laughing, arguing about something silly. Normal kid noise. Sarah hugged them both, holding them a little tighter than usual. "Mom, you okay?" Emma asked, pulling back to look at her. "I'm fine, sweetie," Sarah lied. "Just tired." At 6:32, David's Lexus pulled into the driveway. Sarah's entire body tensed. She heard the car door close, heard his footsteps on the walkway, heard his key in the lock. The door opened. "Hey, family," David called out, his voice cheerful and bright. "Something smells amazing." He walked into the kitchen, still in his work clothes, tie loosened. He kissed Sarah on the cheek, the same casual kiss he'd given her 10,000 times before. "How was your day?" he asked, grabbing a beer from the refrigerator. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, at his familiar face, his easy smile, his comfortable posture. This man had slept in her bed last night. This man had made breakfast with her this morning. This man was a complete stranger. "It was fine," Sarah said, her voice steady. "How was yours?" "Busy," David said, taking a sip of beer. "All conference calls all afternoon, but I'm home now." Home. As if he had only one. They sat down for dinner. Emma talked about her upcoming soccer tournament. Lucas complained about his math homework. David laughed at Lucas's jokes and praised Emma's goals. He held Sarah's hand across the table when the kids weren't looking. It was all so normal, so perfectly, horrifyingly normal. After dinner, David helped clear the dishes. He asked Sarah about her day, about her mother, about the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom. He was attentive, present, loving. And Sarah played along. She smiled. She laughed at his stories. She touched his arm when he made a joke. But inside, she was screaming. At 9 o'clock, David excused himself to take a work call. He went into his office and closed the door. Sarah knew exactly who he was calling. Rachel. His 9 o'clock call. His routine. Sarah stood outside the office door listening. David's voice was muffled, but she could hear the tone. Soft, affectionate, the same tone he used with her. "I know, baby. I'll figure it out. Just give me a few days. No, she doesn't suspect anything. I promise everything is going to be okay." Sarah backed away from the door, her stomach churning. He was lying to Rachel, too, telling her that Sarah didn't know, playing both sides. That night, when David climbed into bed beside her, Sarah pretended to be asleep. He wrapped his arm around her waist, pulled her close, and kissed the back of her neck. "Love you, honey," he whispered. Sarah kept her eyes closed, kept her breathing steady and tried not to vomit. She waited until David's breathing deepened, until she was sure he was asleep. Then she carefully slipped out of bed, grabbed her phone, and went downstairs. In the dark kitchen, Sarah did something she never thought she'd do. She called a divorce lawyer. The phone rang 3 times before a sleepy voice answered. "This is Attorney Jennifer Walsh." "I'm sorry to call so late, but I need help. My husband has been living a double life, and I need to know what to do." There was a pause. Then Jennifer's voice came back, suddenly alert and focused. "Tell me everything." And Sarah did. She told Jennifer about Rachel, about the Chicago apartment, about the fake ID, about the 3 years of lies. "Do you have evidence?" Jennifer asked. "Photos of credit card statements, phone records, and the fake driver's license," Sarah said. "Good," Jennifer said. "Don't confront him yet. We need to secure your assets first. Can you meet me tomorrow morning at 9? "Yes," Sarah said. "Bring every piece of evidence you have, bank statements, property deeds, retirement accounts, everything. If he's been living a double life, he's likely been hiding money too." Hiding money. Sarah hadn't even thought of that. "One more thing," Jennifer said gently. "Don't tell anyone about this yet. Not your friends, not your family. The fewer people who know, the better. Your husband can't find out that you're investigating him." "Okay," Sarah whispered. "You're doing the right thing," Jennifer said gently. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you are. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Sarah hung up and sat in the dark kitchen, her phone clutched in her hand. Somewhere upstairs, her husband was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his perfect double life was about to come crashing down. But darling, Sarah had no idea just how deep this deception went, because what she'd discovered so far, that was just the tip of the iceberg. The next morning, Sarah woke up at 6, showered, made breakfast for the kids, and kissed David goodbye at 7:15, just like always. She watched his Lexus disappear down the street, and then she got into her own car and drove to Jennifer Walsh's law office. Jennifer was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her office was small but professional, with law degrees on the wall and a coffee maker in the corner. "Coffee?" Jennifer offered. "Please," Sarah said. They sat across from each other at Jennifer's desk. Sarah spread out everything she'd printed and photographed: credit card statements, phone records, photos of the fake ID. Jennifer examined each document carefully, making notes on a legal pad. "This is good evidence, but we need more. We need to know the full scope of his financial deception. Does he have any accounts you don't know about? Any property? Any debt?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "He always handled the money." "That's common. And that's exactly why men like David get away with this for so long. They control the finances. They control the information. And their wives trust them. There was that word again, trust. "Here's what we're going to do," Jennifer said. "First, I'm going to file a motion to freeze all marital assets. That way he can't drain the bank accounts or sell property. Second, I'm going to hire a private investigator to dig into his background. If he has a fake ID, there's a chance he has other identities too." "Other identities?" Sarah repeated, feeling dizzy. "It's possible," Jennifer said carefully. "Men who lead double lives often have more than two. It's a pattern of behavior." Sarah felt like the room was spinning. More than two lives? More than two identities? "How long will this take?" Sarah asked. "The investigation? Maybe a few weeks, maybe a month," Jennifer said. "But I need you to be patient, and I need you to keep acting normal at home. Can you do that?" Sarah thought about lying next to David every night, pretending everything was fine while knowing he was a stranger. "I don't know," Sarah said honestly. "You have to," Jennifer said firmly. "If he suspects that you know, he'll run. He'll hide assets. He'll make this whole process 10 times harder. You need to stay calm, stay smart, and stay silent." Friends, if you're feeling stressed just listening to this, imagine living it. Show some love by hitting that like button and comment below if you think Sarah should confront David right now or wait for more evidence. I'm curious what you think. Sarah left Jennifer's office with a plan. Act normal, gather evidence, wait for the investigator's report. But waiting was torture. Every morning, Sarah kissed David goodbye and watched him drive away, wondering where he was really going. Every evening, she made dinner and pretended to care about his day, while her mind raced with questions. Every night, she lay awake in bed, listening to David breathe, and wondered who he really was. The private investigator's name was Marcus Chen. He was a former police detective, methodical and thorough. Jennifer had hired him to dig into David's entire life. A week after their first meeting, Marcus called Sarah with an update. "I need you to sit down for this," Marcus said. Sarah was in her car, parked in the grocery store parking lot. She gripped a steering wheel. "Just tell me," Sarah said. "David Mitchell has been using the Michael Harrison identity for 5 years, not 3. The Chicago apartment is registered under that name. He has a separate bank account under that name. He has credit cards under that name." 5 years? Sarah felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. 5 years of lies. "There's more," Marcus said. "Michael Harrison, or rather David, has been renting a storage unit in Chicago for the past 4 years. I don't know what's in it yet, but I'm working on getting access." "A storage unit," Sarah repeated, numbly. "What would he need a storage unit for?" "That's what I intend to find out. But Sarah, there's something else. Something bigger." Sarah closed her eyes. "What?" "I found another woman." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "What?" Sarah whispered. "Her name is Nicole Anderson." She lives in Indianapolis. I found receipts for hotels there, restaurant charges, gifts. Same pattern as Rachel Porter. David's been seeing her for about 2 years. 2 women? 2 separate relationships? 2 separate lies. How many? Sarah asked, her voice shaking. I don't know yet, Marcus said honestly, but I'm going to find out. Sarah sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes after the call ended, staring at nothing. People walked past her car with shopping carts. Kids laughed. The world kept turning. But Sarah's world had stopped. That night at dinner, David asked Sarah if she was feeling okay. You seem quiet, he said, reaching across the table to touch her hand. Sarah looked at his hand on hers, the wedding ring on his finger, the same ring she'd slipped onto his hand 17 years ago, promising to love him forever. I'm fine, Sarah said. Just tired. You should rest, David said, his voice full of concern. I'll handle bedtime with the kids tonight. He was so good at it, so convincing. If Sarah didn't know the truth, she would have believed every word. After the kids went to bed, David suggested they watch a movie together. They sat on the couch, David's arm around Sarah's shoulders, watching some romantic comedy Sarah couldn't focus on. Halfway through the movie, David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood up. Work email. I need to respond to this. Be right back. Sarah watched him walk to his office. She knew it wasn't work. It was one of them, Rachel or Nicole, or maybe someone else Marcus hadn't found yet. Sarah picked up David's iPad from the coffee table. He'd left it unlocked. She opened his email. And there, darling, Sarah found something that changed everything. The email wasn't from work. It was from a real estate agent in Denver, Colorado. Mr. Harrison, the property viewing is scheduled for next Saturday at 2 p.m. The sellers are motivated and ready to close quickly. This house would be perfect for you and your family. Looking forward to seeing you there. A house in Denver. David was buying a house in Denver. Sarah's mind raced. Denver, not Chicago, not Indianapolis. A third city, a third life. But the email said, you and your family. What family? Sarah scrolled through more emails. There were dozens from the Denver real estate agent going back months. Photos of houses, mortgage pre-approval letters, school district information. School districts. Sarah felt like she was going to be sick. David was planning to move someone to Denver, a woman and her children. Was he planning to leave Sarah? Or was he planning to start yet another life with yet another family? Sarah heard David's footsteps coming back. She quickly closed the email app and set the iPad down, forcing herself to breathe normally. Everything okay? David asked, settling back onto the couch.
Perfect, Sarah lied. That night, Sarah called Jennifer Walsh from the bathroom with the shower running to cover her voice. He's buying a house in Denver, Sarah said, under the Michael Harrison name. The real estate agent mentioned a family. Jennifer, what if there are children? What if he has children with someone else? We'll find out, Jennifer said. I'll have Marcus investigate Denver. But Sarah, you need to stay calm. I know this is horrible, but you cannot let David know that you're on to him. How much longer? Sarah asked, her voice breaking. How much longer do I have to pretend?
Soon, Jennifer promised. We're almost ready to file, just a few more days. But those few days felt like a lifetime. 3 days later, Marcus called again. I found her, Marcus said. The Denver woman. Her name is Amanda Hayes. She's 32 years old. And Sarah, she has a son, a 4-year-old boy. Sarah couldn't breathe. A child. David had a child with another woman. Are you sure? Sarah whispered. I'm looking at the birth certificate right now, Marcus said. Father's name, Michael Harrison. Mother's name, Amanda Hayes. Child's name, Ethan Harrison, born 4 years ago. David had a son, a 4-year-old son that Sarah knew nothing about. While Sarah was home with Emma and Lucas, David was in Denver playing father to another child. There's more, Marcus said quietly. I finally got access to the storage unit in Chicago. What's in it? Documents, Marcus said. Boxes and boxes of documents. Birth certificates, marriage certificates, property records. Sarah, David has 4 other identities besides Michael Harrison. 4. And each one has a trail. 4 other identities? 5 lives total? How is that possible? Sarah asked. He's been doing this for a long time, Marcus said. I found documents going back 15 years. He's been building this web of lies since before he married you. Before he married her, which meant their entire marriage was a lie. Every moment, every memory, every promise, all of it was built on deception. I need you to come to my office, Marcus said. I need to show you everything. Can you come tomorrow? Yes, Sarah said. The next morning, Sarah told David she was having lunch with an old friend. She drove to Marcus's office, which was in a small building downtown. Marcus met her at the door, his expression grave. Are you ready for this? Marcus asked. Sarah nodded, even though she wasn't ready at all. Marcus led her to a conference room. The table was covered with folders, each one labeled with a different name. Michael Harrison, James Porter, Robert Anderson, Christopher Hayes, Daniel Morrison. 5 identities, 5 lives. Each one has a complete history, Marcus explained. Driver's licenses, social security numbers, bank accounts, credit cards. He's been living as 5 different men. Sarah opened the Michael Harrison folder. Inside were photos of David with Rachel in Chicago, smiling, holding hands, looking like a happy couple. She opened the Robert Anderson folder, photos of David with Nicole in Indianapolis, at restaurants, at parks, at her apartment. She opened the Christopher Hayes folder, photos of David with Amanda in Denver. And there, in the center of the folder, was a photo of David holding a little boy, Ethan, his son. Sarah's hands shook as she looked at the photo. The little boy had David's eyes. How did he manage this? How did he keep track of 5 different lives? Very carefully, Marcus said. I found spreadsheets in the storage unit. He kept detailed schedules. Which city he'd be in on which days, which name he was using, which woman he was seeing. He planned every detail. Marcus pulled out a binder and opened it. Inside were printed spreadsheets, color-coded and organized by week. Monday, Tuesday, Millbrook. David Mitchell, wife, Sarah, children, Emma and Lucas. Wednesday, Thursday, Chicago. Michael Harrison, girlfriend, Rachel. Friday, Indianapolis. Robert Anderson, girlfriend, Nicole. Weekend. Rotating between Denver, Christopher Hayes, girlfriend, Amanda, son, Ethan. He's been living like this for years, Marcus said. traveling constantly, making up business trips, creating elaborate lies, and somehow he kept it all straight. Sweetheart, I need you to pause and process this with me. 5 identities, 5 separate lives. Can you even imagine? If this story is blowing your mind, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you need to hear how this ends. Drop a comment. What would you do if you were Sarah? Sarah stared at the schedule. Her entire marriage had been a lie. David had never been fully hers. He'd been divided into pieces, shared among 5 different women, 5 different lives. What about the others? Sarah asked. The other women. Do they know? I don't think so, Marcus said. Rachel called you because she found out by accident. But the others, Nicole, Amanda, they still think they're the only ones. Someone needs to tell them, Sarah said. That's your decision, Marcus said. Jennifer and I recommend focusing on your divorce first, protecting your assets and your children. The other women, they'll find out eventually. But Sarah couldn't stop thinking about them. Nicole in Indianapolis, Amanda in Denver, and whoever was connected to the other 2 identities Marcus had found. How many women had David deceived? How many lives had he destroyed? What about the other 2 identities? Sarah asked, pointing to the Daniel Morrison and James Porter folders. What are those? Marcus's expression darkened. That's the part I wanted to talk to you about. Those 2 identities are different. They're not connected to women. They're connected to businesses. Businesses, Sarah repeated. David has been running a financial scheme, using fake identities to create shell companies, moving money around. I've turned this information over to the FBI. They're investigating him for fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. The FBI. The words didn't even seem real. How much money? Sarah asked. We don't know yet, but we're talking millions. He's been siphoning money from his employer, creating fake invoices, hiding assets. Sarah, your husband isn't just a cheater, he's a criminal. Sarah sat down heavily. Her husband was a criminal. The father of her children was going to prison. What happens now? Sarah asked. Jennifer is filing for divorce tomorrow, and the FBI is planning to arrest David within the week. The kids, Sarah said suddenly. What do I tie the kids? Marcus's expression softened. That's between you and Jennifer. But Sarah, you need to prepare them. Their father is going away for a long time. Sarah drove home in a daze. She picked up Emma and Lucas from school, made them snacks, helped with homework, all on autopilot. That evening, David came home at his usual time, smiling and cheerful. How was your day? He asked, kissing Sarah on the cheek. Sarah looked at him, at this man who had built an empire of lies, this man who had betrayed her in ways she was still discovering. It was fine, Sarah said. How was yours? Great. Closed a big deal today. I think we should celebrate. How about we order pizza and watch a movie with the kids? Pizza and a movie. Like a normal family. Like nothing was wrong. Sarah nodded. Sounds good. That night, after the kids went to bed, Sarah lay awake next to David. He was asleep, breathing deeply, completely at peace. Tomorrow, Jennifer would file the divorce papers. Within a week, the FBI would arrest him. His entire web of lies would collapse. And Sarah would finally be free. But first, she had one more thing to do. The next morning started like any other morning. David kissed Sarah goodbye at 7:15 and drove away in his Lexus. But this time, Sarah knew it would be the last normal morning they ever had. At 9 o'clock, Jennifer Walsh filed the divorce papers. At 9:30, Sarah received a call from Marcus. "The FBI is moving in today," Marcus said. "They're going to arrest David at his office at noon. Jennifer thought you should know." Sarah looked at the clock. Noon. In less than 3 hours, David's entire world would explode. "What should I do?" Sarah asked. "Stay home," Marcus said. "Keep the kids at school. The FBI will want to talk to you later today, but for now, just stay calm." Stay calm. Easy for him to say. Sarah spent the morning in a fog. She tried to clean the kitchen, but ended up just standing at the sink, staring out the window. She tried to read, but couldn't focus on the words. At 11:45, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" Sarah answered. "Is this Sarah Mitchell?" A woman's voice, professional and brisk. "Yes," Sarah said. "This is Special Agent Lisa Monroe with the FBI. I'm calling to let you know that we're about to take your husband into custody. We need to search your home. I'll be there in approximately 1 hour with a warrant." "Okay," Sarah said, her voice hollow. "Mrs. Mitchell, I know this is difficult," Agent Monroe said, her voice softening slightly. "But we need you to cooperate fully. Do you understand?" "Yes," Sarah said. At exactly noon, Sarah's phone rang again. This time, it was David. "Sarah," David said, his voice panicked. "Sarah, something's happening. The FBI is here. They're arresting me. They're saying I committed fraud. This is insane. You have to help me. You have to call a lawyer." Sarah closed her eyes. In the background, she could hear voices, official voices, someone reading David his rights. "Sarah," David shouted, "are you listening to me? I need you." "I know," Sarah said quietly. "What?" David said. "I know everything," Sarah said. "Rachel, Nicole, Amanda, the fake identities, the money, all of it." There was silence on the other end of the line, complete silence. Then David's voice came back, different now, cold, calculating. "You've been investigating me," David said. "Yes," Sarah said. "For how long?" "Long enough," Sarah said. "Sarah, listen to me," David said, his voice urgent. "This is a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Just don't do anything stupid. Don't talk to the FBI. Don't sign anything. We can work this out." "No," Sarah said. "We can't." "Sarah," David started. "Goodbye, David." And Sarah hung up. She stood there in her kitchen, phone in her hand, and felt something she hadn't felt in weeks: relief. An hour later, 4 FBI agents arrived at Sarah's door with a search warrant. Agent Monroe was tall, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Mitchell," Agent Monroe said, showing her badge, "we need to search your home. This is the warrant." Sarah stepped aside. "Do what you need to do." The agents moved through the house methodically. They photographed David's office. They collected his computer, his files, his documents. They found the burner phone in the shoebox. They found the fake ID. Agent Monroe sat down with Sarah at the kitchen table while the other agents worked. "How long have you known?" Agent Monroe asked. "About 2 weeks," Sarah said. "A woman called me, one of his girlfriends. She told me about the Chicago apartment." "Rachel Porter." "Yes," Sarah said. "After that, I hired a private investigator." "Smart," Agent Monroe said. "Most spouses would have confronted him immediately. You stayed calm. That helped us." "Helped you how?" Sarah asked. "We've been investigating your husband for 6 months. We knew about the financial fraud, but we didn't know about the multiple identities until your private investigator, Marcus Chen, contacted us 2 weeks ago. His information helped us build a much stronger case." Sarah blinked. "Marcus called you?" "Yes," Agent Monroe said. "He's former law enforcement. When he realized the scope of your husband's crimes, he knew he had to report it. Identity theft on this scale is a federal crime." "How much money did he steal?" Sarah asked. Agent Monroe pulled out a folder and opened it. "We're still calculating the exact amount, but we estimate approximately $3.2 million over the past 8 years. $3.2 million? Sarah felt dizzy. From where? Multiple sources, Agent Monroe said. His employer, pharmaceutical companies he worked with, insurance fraud, fake businesses. Your husband is very intelligent, Mrs. Mitchell. He created an incredibly complex network of shell companies and false identities. He moved money through dozens of accounts. It took our forensic accountants months to trace it all. "Where did the money go?" Sarah asked. "That's what we're still determining," Agent Monroe said. "Some of it went to maintaining his various lifestyles, the apartment in Chicago, gifts for his girlfriends, the house he was buying in Denver. But there's a significant amount we can't account for. We believe he has hidden assets somewhere, offshore accounts maybe, or property under names we haven't discovered yet." Sarah thought about the spreadsheets Marcus had found. David was meticulous. If he'd hidden money, he'd done it carefully. "Will I get any of it back?" Sarah asked. "For my kids?" "That depends," Agent Monroe said. "If we can recover the assets, and if the court determines they're marital property, then yes. But it's going to be a long process." One of the agents came out of David's office carrying a box of files. "Agent Monroe, you need to see this." Agent Monroe stood up. "Excuse me, Mrs. Mitchell." Sarah sat at the kitchen table and watched the FBI agents move through her home, her safe, normal home where she'd raised her children and built her life. It all felt tainted now, contaminated by David's lies. The agents stayed for 3 hours. When they finally left, the house felt empty, violated. Sarah walked through the rooms, looking at the spaces where David's things used to be. His office was nearly bare. His closet had been searched, clothes pulled out and examined. Sarah's phone rang. Jennifer Walsh. "I heard about the arrest," Jennifer said. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," Sarah said honestly. "The FBI is going to want you to testify," Jennifer said. "And Sarah, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to be all over the news. David Mitchell, respected pharmaceutical sales manager, arrested for fraud and identity theft. The media is going to descend on you." Sarah hadn't thought about that. The media? Her face on the news? Her children's faces? "What do I do?" Sarah asked. "Don't talk to anyone," Jennifer said firmly. "No reporters, no neighbors, no friends. Refer everyone to me.
I'll handle the media. You focus on your kids. The kids. Sarah looked at the clock. 2:30. They'd be home from school in an hour. I have to tell them, Sarah said. Yes, Jennifer said gently. You do. Sarah spent the next hour trying to figure out what to say. How do you tell your 15-year-old daughter and 12-year-old son that their father is a criminal? That everything they knew about their family was a lie? At 3:30, Emma and Lucas came through the front door, backpacks slung over their shoulders. Hey, Mom, Emma called out. What's for snack? Sarah was sitting on the couch. She'd been sitting
there for 20 minutes, trying to find the right words. Come sit down, Sarah said. Both of you. I need to talk to you about something important. Emma and Lucas exchanged glances, that sibling communication that needs no words. Something's wrong. They sat down on either side of Sarah. Emma pulled her knees up to her chest, already defensive. Lucas looked scared. Where's Dad? Lucas asked. Sarah took a deep breath. Your father was arrested today. The words hung in the air. Emma's eyes went wide. Lucas's mouth fell open. What? Emma whispered. The FBI arrested him for fraud and identity theft, Sarah said, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. He's been stealing money from his company and using fake identities. That's not true, Emma said immediately. Dads wouldn't do that. Emma? Sarah started. No, Emma stood up, her face flushed with anger. Dad's a good person. Someone made a mistake. You have to fix this. Sweetheart, I know this is hard to hear. Is he coming home? Lucas asked, his voice small. Sarah looked at her son's frightened face and felt her heart break. No, baby, he's not. When? When is he coming home? I don't know, Sarah said honestly. He might go to prison for a long time. Lucas started crying, not the dramatic tears of a tantrum, but the quiet, devastating tears of a child whose world is falling apart. Emma was still standing, her fists clenched. I don't believe you. You're lying. You're trying to turn us against Dad. Emma, I'm not. Where is he? Emma demanded. I want to talk to him. I want to hear it from him. He's in federal custody, Sarah said. You can't talk to him right now. This is your fault. You did something. You made them arrest him. The words hit Sarah like a slap. Emma, that's not fair. I hate you, Emma screamed and ran upstairs. A moment later, Sarah heard her bedroom door slam. Lucas was still crying, curled into himself on the couch. Sarah pulled him close, holding him while he sobbed. It's going to be okay, Sarah whispered, stroking his hair. I promise, baby, it's going to be okay. But she didn't know if that was true. Oh, darling, this is the heartbreak that betrayal creates. It doesn't just hurt the spouse, it destroys the children too. If you're feeling emotional right now, you're not alone. Leave a comment sharing your support for Sarah and her kids. And please, share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes we all need to remember that we're not alone in our pain. That night, Lucas refused to leave Sarah's side. He followed her from room to room, silent and clinging. Emma stayed locked in her bedroom, refusing to come out for dinner. At 8 o'clock, Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number again. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Agent Monroe. I wanted to update you on your husband's situation. What's happening? Sarah asked. He's being held without bail, Agent Monroe said. The judge determined he's a flight of risk, given the multiple identities and hidden assets. His arraignment is scheduled for Monday. Okay, Sarah said. There's something else, Agent Monroe said. We contacted the other women, Rachel Porter, Nicole Anderson, and Amanda Hayes. We needed their cooperation for the investigation. Sarah's stomach tightened. How did they react? About how you'd expect. Shock, denial, anger. Rachel Porter is cooperating fully. She's devastated. Nicole Anderson is in disbelief. And Amanda Hayes... Agent Monroe paused. What about Amanda? Sarah asked. She has a 4-year-old son. She thought David, or Christopher, as she knew him, was going to marry her. She's in Denver right now, trying to process the fact that her child's father is a con artist who already has a wife and 2 other children. Sarah closed her eyes. She'd been so focused on her own pain that she hadn't fully considered Amanda's situation. A single mother with a 4-year-old discovering that the man she loved was a fraud. What about the other 2 identities? Daniel Morrison and James Porter. Were there women connected to those? We're still investigating, Agent Monroe said. But yes, we believe so. Your husband has been very busy, Mrs. Mitchell. After the call ended, Sarah sat in the dark living room with Lucas asleep against her shoulder. She thought about all of David's victims, not just her, but Rachel and Nicole and Amanda, and possibly others they hadn't found yet. How many lives had David destroyed in pursuit of his own selfish desires? The next morning, Sarah woke up to her phone buzzing with text messages. Dozens of them. From friends, neighbors, acquaintances. I saw the news. Is it true? Oh my God, Sarah, I can't believe it. Are you okay? If you need anything, let me know. Sarah turned on the TV. And there it was. David's face on the screen. His arrest photo. The news anchor's voice explaining the charges. Local pharmaceutical executive David Mitchell was arrested yesterday on multiple charges, including fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. FBI sources say Mitchell had been living under 5 different identities, maintaining relationships with multiple women while married with 2 children. The investigation is ongoing. Sarah closed her eyes. The school had left without saying goodbye. Emma had left without saying goodbye. At 10 o'clock, Jennifer called. Have you seen the news? Yes, Sarah said. It's going to get worse before it gets better. There are reporters camped outside David's office. They're going to find your house soon. I recommend you take the kids and stay somewhere else for a few days, with family maybe. Sarah thought about her mother, who lived 2 hours away. I'll call my mom. Good, Jennifer said. And Sarah, David's lawyer called me this morning. He wants to negotiate. Negotiate what? Sarah asked. A settlement. David knows he's going to prison. He wants to make sure you and the kids are taken care of before he goes. Sarah almost laughed. He wants to take care of us after what he's done? I know it sounds absurd, Jennifer said, but it's actually in your best interest to negotiate. We can get you a better settlement now than waiting for the criminal trial to play out. We can secure assets, get you alimony, protect the kid's future. What does he want in return? Sarah asked. Your testimony. Or rather, he wants to make sure you don't testify against him in the criminal trial. If you agree to a generous divorce settlement, he's hoping you'll be less motivated to help the prosecution. Sarah felt a surge of anger. He still thinks he can manipulate me. Yes, Jennifer said. He does. But Sarah, we can use this. We can get you everything you deserve, the house, the retirement accounts, child support, alimony, and then you can still testify against him if you choose. The divorce settlement doesn't prevent that. Sarah thought about it. About Emma's college fund, about Lucas's future, about rebuilding their lives. Okay, Sarah said. Let's negotiate. Over the next week, Sarah stayed at her mother's house with Emma and Lucas. Her mother, Patricia, was a sturdy woman in her 60s,
practical and no nonsense. She took care of the kids while Sarah met with lawyers and FBI agents and dealt with the aftermath of David's arrest. The media frenzy was worse than Sarah had imagined. News trucks parked outside their house in Millbrook. Reporters called Sarah's phone constantly. Her face appeared on the news, described as the betrayed wife and the unsuspecting victim. Sarah hated it. She wasn't a victim. She was a survivor. Emma slowly started to accept the truth. Jennifer had given Sarah copies of the evidence, the photos, the fake IDs, the spreadsheets. Sarah showed them to Emma, piece by piece, letting her daughter see the reality of her father's deception. "He lied to us," Emma said finally, staring at a photo of David with Amanda and little Ethan in Denver. "He lied about everything." "Yes," Sarah said, "he did." "He has a brother," Emma said, touching the photo of Ethan. "A little brother I've never met." Sarah hadn't thought about that. Emma and Lucas had a half-brother they didn't know, a 4-year-old in Denver who would grow up knowing his father was a criminal. "Maybe someday you can meet him," Sarah said. "Does he look like Dad?" Emma asked. Sarah looked at the photo. "Yes, he has Dad's eyes." Emma started crying. Sarah held her, letting her daughter grieve for the father she thought she'd known. Lucas was quieter. He didn't cry much after that first night. He just withdrew into himself, playing video games for hours,
not talking about his feelings. Sarah worried about him, but she didn't know how to help him when she was barely holding herself together. A week after David's arrest, Jennifer called with news about the divorce settlement. "David's agreed to everything," Jennifer said. "You get the house, full custody of the kids, 60% of all marital assets, and alimony for 10 years. "What about the money he stole?" Sarah asked. "The FBI is still working on recovering it, but if they do, you'll get a portion." And Sarah, there's something else. The FBI found another identity, a 6th one. Sarah closed her eyes. "Who?" "Thomas Bennett," Jennifer said. "He's been using that identity for 12 years. And Sarah, Thomas Bennett is married." The world tilted sideways. "Married?" Sarah repeated. "Yes," Jennifer said, "to a woman named Helen Bennett in Seattle. They've been married for 10 years. 10 years! David had been married to another woman for 10 years, which meant he'd been married to both Sarah and Helen simultaneously for 10 years. Sarah was a bigamist's wife. "Are there children?" Sarah asked, her voice hollow. "2," Jennifer said quietly. "A 9-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. David had 4 more children he'd raised while pretending to be a different person." "Does Helen know?" Sarah asked. "The FBI told her yesterday. She's in shock. She had no idea, just like you." Sarah thought about Helen in Seattle, discovering the same horrible truth. Another woman whose life had been destroyed by David's lies. "How many?" Sarah asked. "How many lives did he ruin?" "We don't know yet. The FBI is still investigating. There might be more." "More?" "There might be more wives, more girlfriends, more children." Sarah hung up the phone and walked outside to her mother's garden. She stood there among the flowers,
breathing in the cool autumn air, and tried to understand how one man could cause so much destruction. 2 weeks after David's arrest, Sarah received an email from Rachel Porter. The subject line read, "Can we talk?" Sarah stared at the email for a long time before opening it. "Darling, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I'm part of the reason your life fell apart. But I need to talk to you. I need to understand what happened. The FBI told me there were other women, Nicole, Amanda, Helen. They told me about the children. I can't process this alone. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for a conversation, woman to woman, victim to victim. If you're willing, please respond. Rachel." Sarah read the email 3 times. Part of her wanted to delete it, to block Rachel's email address and never think about her again. But another part of her understood Rachel's pain, because Rachel was a victim too. They all were. Sarah wrote back, "I'll meet you, but not alone. I think all of us should meet. All the women David deceived." Rachel responded within an hour, "I'll contact the others." 3 days later, 5 women sat in a private conference room at Jennifer Walsh's law office. Sarah, Rachel, Nicole, Amanda, Helen. 5 women who had loved the same man. 5 women who had been betrayed by the same lies. They looked at each other awkwardly at first. What do you say to your husband's other wives? How do you break the ice with the women your husband cheated on? Rachel spoke first. She was younger than Sarah had imagined, with strawberry blonde hair and freckles. She looked exhausted. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know this is weird, beyond weird, but I needed to meet you all. I needed to see that I wasn't crazy, that this really happened." "It really happened," Nicole said bitterly. She was tall and elegant, with dark skin and sharp eyes. Amanda was holding a photo of Ethan, clutching it like a lifeline. She was petite and blonde, with red-rimmed eyes from crying. "I don't understand how he did it, how he kept track of all of us." "Spreadsheets," Sarah said. "He had spreadsheets, schedules. He planned every detail." Helen was the oldest of them, in her early 40s, with graying brown hair and a wedding ring she kept twisting around her finger. "He told me he traveled for work, pharmaceutical sales," he said, "and he'd be gone for days at a time. I never questioned it." "Neither did I. I trusted him completely."
Sweetheart, can you imagine sitting in a room with your husband's other wives? The pain, the betrayal, the confusion. If this story is hitting you hard, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And please, comment below. Do you think these women should support each other or blame each other? I'm curious what you think. The women sat in silence for a moment, each lost in their own pain. Then Rachel said, "I want revenge." Everyone looked at her. "Not just prison," Rachel continued, her voice gaining strength. "I want him to feel what we feel. I want him to understand the depth of what he's done." "The trial will do that," Jennifer said, from the corner of the room where she'd been observing quietly.
Will he? Rachel asked. He'll go to prison, sure, but will he really understand? Will he really feel the pain he caused? What are you suggesting? Nicole asked. I'm suggesting we all testify, all 5 of us. We stand up in court and tell our stories. We make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of monster he is. I'm already testifying, Sarah said. The FBI needs my testimony for the fraud charges. I'll testify too, Helen said quietly. He deserves it. One by one, the other women agreed. They would all testify. They would all tell their stories. They would make sure David faced the full consequences of his actions. Over the next hour, the women shared their experiences. They compared notes, finding eerily similar traits in David's behavior. He told them all the same lies. He traveled for work. He was divorced. He wanted to build a future together. He loved them more than anything. He'd given them all similar gifts: gold necklaces, weekend getaways to the same hotels, flowers on the same occasions. He'd used the same sweet words. You're the one I've been waiting for. You make me complete. I've never felt this way before. It was all a script, a performance he'd perfected over years of practice. He's a sociopath, Nicole said. He has to be. Normal people can't lie like that. The FBI psychologist said the same thing, Sarah said. They think he has antisocial personality disorder. No empathy, no remorse, just a desire to get what he wants, no matter who gets hurt. What about the money? Amanda asked. Where did it all go? The FBI is still trying to figure that out, Sarah said. They've recovered about $800,000 so far, but there's more than $2 million still missing. He probably has offshore accounts, Helen said. Thomas, David, whoever he is, he always talked about international investments. I thought he was being smart with our money. Now I realize he was hiding it. The women spent hours talking, sharing their pain, comparing their experiences, and slowly, something unexpected happened. They started to bond. These 5 women, brought together by betrayal, found comfort in each other. They understood each other's pain in a way nobody else could. They didn't judge each other. They didn't blame each other. They just supported each other. By the end of the meeting, they'd exchanged phone numbers. They'd created a group chat. They'd agreed to stay in contact. We're survivors, Rachel said. All of us. He tried to destroy us, but we're still here. We're still standing. To surviving, Nicole said, raising her coffee cup. The other women raised their cups. To surviving. As Sarah drove home that evening, she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks: hope. She wasn't alone in this. She had allies. She had sisters in survival. And together, they would make sure David Mitchell paid for what he'd done. The next week, more information came to light. The FBI had continued investigating, and they'd found 2 more identities. 7 lives, 7 separate existences. David Mitchell had been living as 7 different men. But the 8th identity was different. This one wasn't connected to a woman or a family. This identity, Kevin White, was connected to something much darker. Agent Monroe called Sarah with the news. We found evidence that David has been involved in illegal activities beyond fraud. Using the Kevin White identity,
He's been money laundering for a drug trafficking organization. What? Sarah said, stunned. He's been moving money for a Mexican cartel. They'd pay him a percentage to clean their drug money through his shell companies. That's where the missing $2 million went. He was using it to purchase property and assets for the cartel. Sarah felt like she was going to be sick. Her husband wasn't just a con artist. He was a criminal working with drug dealers. Are we in danger? Sarah asked, thinking of Emma and Lucas. We don't believe so, Agent Monroe said. David was very careful to keep his worlds separate. The cartel doesn't know about his families. But Sarah, this changes the charges. He's looking at 25 to 30 years in prison now. 25 to 30 years. David would be in his 60s when he got out. Emma would be in her 40s. Lucas would be nearly 40. Their father would miss their entire lives. Sarah should have felt satisfaction, justice, but instead she just felt sad. Sad for her children, who would grow up without a father. Sad for all the lives David had destroyed. Sad for the man she thought she married, who had never really existed at all. That night, Sarah sat down with Emma and Lucas and told them everything. About the other wives, about the other children, about the drug money and the cartel. Emma cried. Lucas just sat there, numb and silent. I'm sorry, Sarah said. I'm so sorry you have to know all this. It's not your fault, Mom. It's his. It's all his fault. Lucas finally spoke. Will we ever see him again? Sarah thought about the prison sentence, about the years stretching ahead. Maybe, someday. If you want to. I don't know if I do, Lucas said quietly. Sarah pulled both her children close, holding them tight. They'd been through so much. They'd had their innocence stolen, their trust shattered, their family destroyed. But they were still here. They were still together. And somehow they would rebuild.
4 months after David's arrest, the trial began. It was January, cold and gray, with snow on the ground. Sarah sat in the courtroom with Jennifer beside her, watching as David was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He lost weight. His hair had grown longer, graying at the temples. He looked older, tired, diminished. When he saw Sarah, he tried to smile. That same charming smile he'd used for 17 years. Sarah looked away. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Margaret Chen, was fierce and thorough. She laid out the evidence methodically, piece by piece, building an overwhelming case against David Mitchell. 7 identities, 5 women, 8 children, $3.2 million in fraud, $2.1 million in drug money laundering. The courtroom was packed. Media representatives filled the back rows. Sketch artists drew pictures. Sarah could feel their eyes on her. The betrayed wife, the victim. She hated that word, victim. On the 3rd day of the trial, Sarah took the stand. Margaret Chen led her through her testimony. How long had she been married to David? Did she know about his other identities? When did she discover the truth? Sarah answered every question calmly, clearly. She told the truth, all of it. David's lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit named Robert Harrison,
tried to rattle her during cross-examination. "Mrs. Mitchell, isn't it true that you were having marital problems before you discovered your husband's alleged infidelity?" "No," Sarah said firmly. "Isn't it true that you hired the private investigator because you were looking for reasons to divorce your husband?" "No," Sarah said. "I hired the investigator after Rachel Porter called me and told me about David's double life. And you expect this court to believe that in 17 years of marriage, you never once suspected your husband was lying to you?" Sarah looked at Robert Harrison. Then she looked at David. "I trusted him. That's what marriage is supposed to be about. Trust." David looked away. After Sarah, Rachel took the stand. Then Nicole, then Amanda, then Helen. One by one, the women told their stories, and one by one, they destroyed David's defense. The jury sat transfixed. Some of them looked angry. Some looked horrified. One older woman in the front row kept shaking her head, tears in her eyes. On the 8th day of testimony, the prosecution called a surprise witness, a 6th woman. Her name was Maria Gonzalez. She was from Texas. She'd been dating David, who she knew as Daniel Morrison, for 6 years. She had 2 children with him, twin girls, age 4. 6 women, 10 children. Sarah sat in the courtroom and listened to Maria's story. It was identical to hers. The same lies, the same promises, the same betrayal. How many more were there? How many women hadn't come forward? "Darling, I need you to take a breath with me. 10 children, 10 innocent children whose father is a monster. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you need to hear how this ends. Drop a comment. Do you think David deserves forgiveness or should he rot in prison? I need to know what you're thinking." The prosecution also called FBI forensic accountant Thomas Lee, who explained in excruciating detail how David had created shell companies, moved money through multiple accounts, and hidden assets offshore. "Mr. Mitchell is one of the most sophisticated financial criminals I've ever investigated. He created an intricate web of false identities and fake businesses that took our team 6 months to untangle." David's defense was weak. His lawyer tried to argue that David had a mental illness that made him unable to control his impulses. They brought in a psychologist who testified about personality disorders and impulse control issues. But Margaret Chen demolished that defense with one simple question. "Doctor, if David was unable to control his impulses, how do you explain the detailed spreadsheets he kept, the careful scheduling, the meticulous planning? This wasn't impulsive behavior. This was calculated, deliberate, premeditated deception." The psychologist had no answer. On the 15th day of the trial, both sides rested their cases. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Sarah waited at her mother's house, unable to eat or sleep. Emma and Lucas stayed home from school, too anxious to focus on anything. On the 3rd day, Jennifer called. "The jury has reached a verdict. We need to go back to court." Sarah's hand shook as she got dressed. She'd chosen a simple black dress, professional and dignified. She braided her hair the way Emma had taught her. In the courtroom, Rachel, Nicole, Amanda, Helen, and Maria were all present. The 6 women sat together in the front row, a united front. David was led back in, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked thinner than ever, his face gaunt and pale. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Holloway, called the courtroom to order. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Holloway asked. "We have, Your Honor," the jury foreman said, standing up. He was a middle-aged man with glasses, holding a piece of paper. "On the charge of wire fraud, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of identity theft?" "Guilty." "On the charge of money laundering?" "Guilty." The foreman read through all 17 charges. "Guilty, guilty, guilty." David's shoulders slumped. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, but David shook it off. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. Relief, validation, justice. Judge Holloway set the sentencing hearing for 1 month later. As Sarah left the courtroom, reporters shoved a microphone in her face. "Mrs. Mitchell, how do you feel about the verdict?" "Mrs. Mitchell, what will you tell your children?" "Mrs. Mitchell, have you forgiven your husband?" Jennifer stepped in front of Sarah, holding up her hand. "Mrs. Mitchell has no comment at this time. Please respect her privacy." They pushed through the crowd to Jennifer's car. Once inside, Sarah finally allowed herself to cry, not for David, not for their marriage, but for everything that had been lost, for the innocence their children would never get back, for the trust that had been shattered, for the life she thought she had. Jennifer handed her tissues and waited patiently. "It's over," Sarah said finally, wiping her eyes. "Yes," Jennifer said, "it's over." But darling, that's where Sarah was wrong, because the story wasn't over yet. In fact, the biggest revelation was still to come.
6 weeks after David's sentencing, Sarah received a letter in the mail. It was from a law firm in Miami, Florida, a firm she'd never heard of. She opened it, confused. "Dear Mrs. Sarah Mitchell, we represent the estate of Mr. David Mitchell Sr., who passed away on February 18th of this year. We understand that you were married to his son, David Mitchell Jr. As part of the estate settlement, we need to inform you of certain assets that may affect your ongoing legal proceedings. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss this matter. Sincerely, Robert Chin, Attorney at Law." Sarah read the letter 3 times, her mind spinning. David's father had died. David had never mentioned his father. In 17 years of marriage, David had told Sarah that both his parents were dead. He'd said they died in a car accident when he was in college. Another lie. Sarah called Jennifer immediately. "I just got a letter from a law firm in Miami," Sarah said. "They say David's father died and there's an estate. But Jennifer, David told me his parents were dead." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "Forward me the letter. I'll contact the law firm." 2 days later, Jennifer called Sarah with information that would change everything. "I spoke with the Miami lawyers," Jennifer said. "Sarah,
You need to sit down for this." Sarah sat down at her kitchen table, her heart pounding. David's father, David Mitchell Sr., was a wealthy real estate developer in Miami. He died last month at age 72. And Sarah, he left behind an estate worth approximately $15 million. $15 million, Sarah said. David never mentioned his father was wealthy. "There's more," Jennifer said. David Sr. had been estranged from David Jr. for over 20 years. According to the Miami lawyers, David Sr. cut off his son when David Jr. was 23 years old. "Why?" Sarah asked. "Because David Jr. was caught running a scam," Jennifer said. He'd been pretending to be a medical student and had defrauded several elderly people out of their savings. David Sr. paid back all the victims to avoid prosecution, then disowned his son, told him never to contact the family again. Sarah felt her stomach drop. David had been a con artist since his early 20s, before he met Sarah, before their marriage. His entire adult life had been built on lies. "So why is the estate contacting me now?" Sarah asked. "Because David Sr. left a provision in his will. He stated that if David Jr. ever had legitimate children, meaning children born within a legal marriage, those children would inherit a portion of the estate. He wanted to make sure David Jr.'s children didn't suffer for their father's sins." Sarah's breath caught. "Emma and Lucas?" "Yes," Jennifer said. "According to the will, Emma and Lucas are each entitled to $2 million held in trust until they turn 25. $4 million for her children from a grandfather they'd never known existed. "But there's a complication," Jennifer said. "David Sr.'s will specifies legitimate children born within a legal marriage. Sarah, David was married to Helen before he married you." The words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. "What?" "David married Helen 10 years ago in Seattle using his real name and identity. That marriage was never dissolved, which means legally his marriage to you was invalid. You were never legally married to David." Sarah couldn't breathe. She'd never been legally married. Their entire marriage was a lie. Emma and Lucas were born to parents who weren't legally married? "Are you telling me my children are—" She couldn't say the word. "Illegitimate in legal terms," Jennifer said gently, "which means according to David Sr.'s will, they may not be entitled to the inheritance." "No," Sarah said. "No, Emma and Lucas didn't ask for any of this. They're innocent. They deserve that money." "I agree," Jennifer said, "and we're going to fight for it. But Sarah, there's more. Helen's children, her daughter and son, are also claiming inheritance rights. And so are Amanda's son Ethan and Maria's twin daughters. We're looking at 6 children, all claiming rights to the same estate. 6 children, all of David's victims, all fighting over their grandfather's money." "This is going to get complicated," Jennifer said. "The Miami law firm has requested that all of David's children and their mothers attend a meeting next month to discuss the estate. Are you willing to go?" Sarah thought about Emma and Lucas, about their future, about college funds and weddings, and opportunities they deserved. "Yes," Sarah said, "I'll go." 3 weeks later,
Sarah found herself on a plane to Miami with Emma and Lucas. It was the first time they'd traveled since David's arrest. Emma stared out the window, quiet and withdrawn. Lucas played video games on his tablet, trying to pretend everything was normal. "Are you okay, Emma?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," Emma said. "We're going to meet our grandfather's lawyers, a grandfather we never knew existed, to fight for money from a man who hated our father. It's all messed up, Mom." "I know, sweetheart," Sarah said, "but this money could change your life. It could pay for college. It could give you opportunities." "I don't want his money," Emma said. "I don't want anything from that family." "You don't have to decide now," Sarah said. "Let's just see what they have to say." The office was in downtown Miami, a sleek high-rise with marble floors and expensive artwork. Sarah, Emma, and Lucas were led to a large conference room on the 20th floor.
And there they were, all of them, the other families. Helen sat with her daughter Maya, who was 9, and her son Jacob, who was 7. Amanda sat with Ethan, now 5 years old, playing with toy cars on the floor. Maria sat with her twin daughters, Sophia and Isabella, who were 4, coloring in coloring books. 6 children, 6 innocent children who shared the same father, who would grow up with the same terrible legacy. The mothers looked at each other. Some nodded in acknowledgement. Some looked away. The air was thick with tension and shared trauma. Robert Chin, the lawyer handling the estate, entered the room. He was a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. "Thank you all for coming," Robert said. "I know this is difficult. Let me start by explaining the situation." He pulled up a presentation on the screen at the front of the room. David Mitchell Sr. accumulated his wealth through real estate development over 40 years. His estate is valued at approximately $15 million. In his will, he left specific provisions for his grandchildren. Robert clicked to the next slide, showing the will's language. The will states, "Any legitimate children born to my son David Mitchell Jr. within a legal marriage shall each inherit $2 million, held in trust until age 25. He paused, looking at the families. "The question we're here to address is this: which of these children qualify as legitimate under the legal definition?" Oh, sweetheart, can you imagine 6 children, all innocent, all victims of their father's lies, now fighting over their grandfather's money? If you're invested in this story, please hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what you think should happen to the inheritance. Should all the children get equal shares? Or should it go only to the legitimate ones? I'm dying to know what you think. Helen's lawyer spoke first. Helen Bennett was legally married to David Mitchell for 10 years before his arrest. Her children, Maya and Jacob, are the only legitimate children born within a legal marriage. Sarah's lawyer, Jennifer, countered immediately. Helen's marriage was performed using a false identity. Thomas Bennett, the marriage certificate lists Thomas Bennett, not David Mitchell. Therefore, it's not a valid marriage under David Sr.'s will, which specifically names David Mitchell Jr. Amanda's lawyer joined in. My client's son, Ethan, was born during the time David was living as Christopher Hayes. While Amanda was not married to David, The will's language is ambiguous about whether illegitimate children can inherit. Maria's lawyer argued the same point for the twins. The arguments went on for 2 hours. Legal definitions, marriage validity, legitimacy, identity fraud. The children sat there, coloring and playing, oblivious to the fact that adults were arguing about whether they deserved their grandfather's money. Finally, Robert Chen held up his hand. "Enough," he said. "I need to share something that might resolve this debate." He pulled out an envelope. Before he died, David Sr. wrote a letter. He suspected that his son might have multiple children with multiple women. He wanted to address this possibility. Robert opened the letter and began to read. "To whomever is reading this, if my son, David, has fathered multiple children, as I suspect he has, I want to make my intentions clear. I do not hold these children responsible for their father's sins. Children are innocent. They deserve opportunity, love, and support regardless of the circumstances of their birth. Therefore, I am amending my original will instruction as follows. All children proven through DNA testing to be biological descendants of David Mitchell Jr. shall share equally in the inheritance designated for grandchildren. Each child shall receive an equal portion, held in trust until age 25. I make this amendment because I was a terrible father to David. I was harsh, judgmental, and ultimately I abandoned him when he needed help. Perhaps if I had been a better father, he would not have become the man he is. I cannot undo my failures as a parent, but I can try to help his children, my grandchildren, have a better future. To all the mothers reading this, I am sorry for what my son has put you through. I hope this money can ease your burden, even in some small way." Signed, David Mitchell Sr. The room fell silent.
Sarah looked at the other mothers, at Helen's tears, at Amanda's shocked expression, at Maria's trembling hands. All 6 children would inherit. Each would get $2.5 million. Emma reached over and took Sarah's hand. "That's a lot of money, Mom." "Yes, sweetie," Sarah said. "It is." "What will we do with it?" Emma asked. Sarah thought about it, about college, about Emma's dreams of becoming a veterinarian, about Lucas's passion for computer programming, about the life they could build. "We'll use it wisely," Sarah said. "We'll use it to build a future, a real future, an honest future." After the meeting, the mothers and children gathered outside the building. The Miami sun was bright, the air warm. The children who had been wary of each other at first started playing together. Maya showed Ethan her phone. Lucas helped little Sophia tie her shoe. Half-siblings, meeting for the first time. "They look like him," Helen said quietly, watching the children. "They all have his eyes." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "They do." "What do we do now?" Amanda asked. "Do we stay in touch? Do we become what? Friends? I don't know," Sarah admitted. "This is uncharted territory." Maria spoke up.
My therapist told me that trauma can either isolate us or connect us. We can each go our separate ways, carrying this burden alone, or we can support each other, build a community of survivors. Rachel, who had also come to the meeting even though she had no children, nodded. We've been through something that most people can't even imagine. We understand each other. That's valuable. A community of David's victims, Nicole said with a bitter laugh. A community of survivors, Helen corrected. Not victims, survivors. Sarah looked at these women, these mothers, who had all been betrayed by the same man, who had all loved him, who had all built lives with him, who had all discovered he was a lie.
I vote for community, Sarah said. For our kids' sake, if nothing else. They're siblings. They deserve to know each other. One by one, the other mothers agreed. They exchanged contact information. They made plans to video chat with the kids once a month. They created a group text for the mothers, a place to share advice and support. Before they left Miami, they all went to dinner together. 6 mothers and 6 children, sitting around a long table at a family-friendly restaurant. The children laughed and played. The mothers talked and shared stories, not about David, but about their lives, their hopes, their dreams. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. 2 years after David's conviction, Sarah stood in the parking lot of the federal prison in Pennsylvania, holding Emma's hand on one side and Lucas's on the other. David had requested a visit. He'd written letters for months, begging Sarah to bring the children. She'd thrown most of the letters away, but the latest one was different. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to tell them the truth. They deserve it to hear it from me. Sarah had talked to a therapist about it. She'd talked to Emma and Lucas. She'd asked them what they wanted. I want to see him, Emma had said. I want to ask him why. Lucas had been less sure, but eventually he'd agreed. I guess I want to see him too. Just once. So here they were, 2 years later, about to face the man who had destroyed their lives. They went through security, metal detectors, bag searches, sign-in sheets. The whole process felt surreal, like something from a movie. They were led to a visiting room. It was institutional and cold, with plastic chairs and a table bolted to the floor. A guard stood in the corner, watching. And then David walked in. He looked old. That was Sarah's first thought. He'd only been in prison for 2 years, but he looked like he'd aged 10. His hair was completely gray now. His face was lined and gaunt. He moved slowly, carefully, like a man much older than 47. When he saw Emma and Lucas, his face crumpled. Oh, God, look at how much you've grown. Emma was 17 now, about to start her senior year of high school. She'd grown tall and confident, with scholarships to 3 different universities already offered. Lucas was 14, gangly and awkward in the way of teenage boys, obsessed with coding and building computers. They sat down across from David. Sarah sat between them, a barrier and a support. Thank you for coming, David said, his voice rough. I know you didn't have to. We came because we have questions, Emma said, her voice steady. And you owe us answers. David nodded.
I'll tell you anything you want to know. Why? Emma asked. That's what I don't understand. Why did you do it? Why did you live all those lies? David was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Because I was broken. I've been broken for as long as I can remember. He looked at Sarah. He wasn't lying when he told you about my parents dying in a car accident. That part was true. They did die. But it wasn't when I was in college. It was when I was 8 years old. Sarah's breath caught. This was new. David had never told her this. After they died, I went to live with my father's brother, my uncle. That was David Mitchell Sr. He adopted me, but he never let me forget that I wasn't his real son. He was cold, distant, demanding. Nothing I did was ever good enough. David's hand shook as he spoke. When I was 23, I got caught running a scam. I had been pretending to be a medical student, convincing elderly people to invest in fake medical research. It was stupid and cruel, and I got caught. Uncle David paid back all the victims, but then he disowned me, told me I was just like my real father, a worthless con artist who would never amount to anything. Emma's expression softened slightly. Lucas was listening intently. After that, I started creating other identities. At first, it was just to get jobs, to build a life. But then I realized something. When I was someone else, I could be whoever I wanted to be. I could be the perfect man, the perfect husband, the perfect father. I could recreate myself over and over, and each time I could get it right.
But you didn't get it right, Sarah said. You just lied. I know, David said. I know that now. But at the time, I convinced myself that I was giving all of you the best version of me, that if I divided myself into pieces, each piece could be perfect. But you can't be divided into pieces, Emma said. You're one person, and that person is a liar. David flinched. Yes, I am. Lucas spoke for the first time. Did you ever love us? Mom, me, Emma? Or were we just part of the performance? David's eyes filled with tears. I loved you. I love you. That's the truth. Every moment I spent with you was real to me. The problem is, I loved all of them too. I loved all my families, and I was too selfish and too broken to admit that I couldn't have all of them. So I tried to have everything. And in the end, I destroyed everything. You destroyed us, Lucas said, his voice breaking. You made us into the kids whose dad is a criminal, the kids whose dad had secret families. Do you know what that's like at school? Do you know how many times I've been bullied because of you? No, David said, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Emma leaned forward. Are you sorry because you got caught? Or are you sorry because you actually understand what you did? David wiped his eyes. Both. At first, I was just sorry I got caught. I spent the first year in prison, angry at everyone else, angry at Rachel for calling Sarah, angry at the FBI, angry at the judge. But then I started therapy, actual therapy, and slowly I started to understand what I'd done. How many lives I destroyed, how many children I traumatized. He looked at each of them. I have 10 children. 10! I destroyed 10 childhoods. I broke 6 women's hearts. I stole millions of dollars. I worked with drug dealers. I'm a monster. And I'm sorry. Doesn't even begin to cover it. Sarah felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness. She wasn't ready for that. Maybe she'd never be ready. But understanding, maybe? A small piece of understanding. What happens now? Sarah asked. You have 23 more years in prison. What are you going to do with that time? I'm going to get better, David said. I'm in therapy 3 times a week. I'm working on understanding my personality disorder, my compulsive lying, my inability to form genuine attachments. I'm not going to be cured, but I'm going to try to understand myself, and I'm going to try to make amends in whatever small ways I can. Ow, Emma asked. I'm writing letters. To all the women I hurt, to all the children, explaining everything, apologizing, taking responsibility. I'm not expecting responses. I'm just trying to give everyone closure. He pulled out a folder. Inside were letters, dozens of them, handwritten on prison stationery. These are for you, David said. Letters explaining everything. My childhood, my mental illness, my choices, my regrets. Read them whenever you're ready. Or don't read them at all. It's your choice. Emma took the folder. Lucas looked at it like it might bite him. They talked for another hour about therapy, about prison life, about David's plans for when he eventually got out. 23 years from now, an old man with nothing left. When visiting hours ended, the guard told them it was time to leave. David stood up. Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me this chance to explain. I don't deserve it. No, Emma said. You don't. Sarah, Emma, and Lucas stood to leave. At the door, Lucas turned back. Dad? He said. David's face lit up at the word. Yes, I forgive you, Lucas said quietly. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry this anger anymore. It's too heavy. David started crying again, harder this time. Thank you. Thank you so much. Emma didn't say anything. She just looked at her father one last time, then walked out. Sarah was the last to leave. She paused at the door and looked back at David, this man she'd been married to for 17 years, this stranger she'd never really known. Goodbye, David, Sarah said. Goodbye, Sarah. I really did love you. I hope you know that. Sarah nodded once, then walked out. She didn't look back. Sweetheart, take a moment with me here. Forgiveness is complicated. Lucas forgave his father, but Emma didn't. Sarah found understanding, but not absolution. There's no right or wrong answer here. If this story has moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Comment below and tell me, could you forgive someone who betrayed you like this? Or is some betrayal too deep for forgiveness? Share this story with someone who needs to hear this story. Outside the prison, Sarah, Emma, and Lucas sat in the car for a long time, not speaking. Finally, Emma said, I'm not ready to forgive him. That's okay, Sarah said. You don't have to. But Lucas is? Emma asked. Lucas shrugged. I don't know if I really forgave him, but I wanted to say it. I wanted to see if it would make me feel better. Did it? Sarah asked. I don't know yet, Lucas said. They drove home in silence. It was a 6-hour drive from the prison back to Millbrook.
Sarah had moved them back to their old house a year ago, after the FBI had released the property and after she had had every room repainted, every piece of furniture replaced. It didn't feel like David's house anymore. It felt like theirs. Sarah's, Emma's, and Lucas's. That night, after the kids went to bed, Sarah sat in the living room with a glass of wine and thought about the past 2 years. So much has changed. She'd gone back to school and gotten her teaching credential. She was now a full-time third-grade teacher at the local elementary school. The work was hard, but rewarding. She loved her students. She loved having purpose again. Emma had blossomed in high school. She was captain of the soccer team, president of the student council, and had a steady boyfriend who treated her with respect. She learned what a healthy relationship looked like by watching Sarah rebuild her own life. Lucas had struggled more. He'd been in therapy for 2 years, working through his anger and trust issues, but he was getting better. He had friends. He'd started a coding club at school. He smiled more. The 6 mothers stayed in touch. They had video calls every month where they talked about their lives, their kids, their healing journeys. The children, all 10 of them, had met up 2 more times. They were building relationships, cautious and awkward, but real. Rachel had moved to Portland and started a nonprofit helping women escape abusive relationships. Nicole had gone back to school for her master's degree in psychology, specializing in trauma counseling. Amanda had written a book about her experience, which was being published next year. Helen had started a support group for women whose partners had secret lives. Maria had become an advocate for stronger identity theft laws. They all had taken their pain and transformed it into purpose. And Sarah, she had learned to trust again. Slowly, carefully, but she learned. She'd even started dating. Nothing serious yet. Just coffee dates and dinners with a kind man named Robert, who worked at the library. He knew her whole story. Everyone in town did. But he didn't treat her like broken goods. He treated her like a survivor. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from the group chat with the other mothers. Helen, just put the kids to bed. Maya asked about Emma today. Wanted to know if they could video chat this weekend. Sarah smiled and typed back, Emma would love that. Amanda, can you plan another meetup soon? Rachel, how about this summer? We could rent a big house on the beach.
All the families together. Nicole, I'm in. Maria, me too. Sarah, let's do it. A family reunion, not a traditional family, certainly, but a family nonetheless, built not on blood or marriage, but on shared trauma and mutual support. Sarah finished her wine and went upstairs. She checked on Lucas, who was asleep with his headphones on, coding tutorials playing on his laptop. She checked on Emma, who was studying for finals, her room covered in college brochures. Sarah's own bedroom was simple now. No photos of David, no reminders of their marriage, just her things, her books, her plants, her life. She climbed into bed and pulled out her phone. There was an email from Jennifer Walsh. Sarah, good news. The FBI recovered another $900,000 of David's stolen money. After legal fees and restitution to his employer, your share comes to approximately $250,000. The money will be deposited into your account by the end of the month. Also,
I wanted to let you know that your divorce was finalized today. You are officially no longer married to David Mitchell. You're free. Best wishes, Jennifer. Free. Sarah read the word again. Free. She thought about what freedom meant. It didn't mean the pain was gone. It didn't mean the betrayal didn't hurt anymore. It didn't mean she'd forgotten what David had done. But it meant she was no longer defined by his lies. She was no longer Mrs. David Mitchell, the betrayed wife, the victim. She was Sarah, teacher, mother, survivor, friend. She was herself. Finally, fully, completely herself. Sarah turned off the light and lay in the darkness, listening to the quiet sounds of her house. Emma's music playing softly, Lucas's gentle snoring, the wind rustling the trees outside. Her house, her life, her future. And for the first time in 3 years, Sarah fell asleep peacefully, without nightmares, without fear, without wondering who she was married to.
Darling, let me tell you what happened 5 years after David went to prison, because stories like this don't really have endings. They just have new beginnings. Emma graduated from Cornell University with honors. She was accepted into veterinary school at UC Davis. She was engaged to her college sweetheart, a kind young man named Marcus, who knew her whole story and loved her anyway. The wedding was planned for next summer. Lucas was 19, studying computer science at MIT. He'd developed an app that helped children of incarcerated parents connect with support groups and resources. It had been downloaded over 100,000 times. He was quiet and thoughtful, still healing, but building a good life. Sarah was 43 years old. She'd been promoted to vice principal at her elementary school. She'd published a memoir about her experience called The Woman Who Married a Ghost. It became a bestseller, helping thousands of women recognize the signs of deception in their own relationships. And Robert, the librarian, he and Sarah had gotten married 2 years ago in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. It was Sarah's second marriage, but her first real one. Robert was steady, honest, transparent, everything David had pretended to be. The 6 mothers still kept in touch. They'd become genuine friends, bonded by trauma, but sustained by love and mutual respect. They met up twice a year with all the children, watching the half-siblings grow up together. Maya was 14 now, a talented artist. Jacob was 12, obsessed with soccer. Ethan was 9, sweet and sensitive. Sophia and Isabella were 8, inseparable twins. And there were 4 more children they'd discovered, 2 more sons and 2 more daughters from relationships they'd uncovered after the trial. 14 children total, all of them David's, all of them innocent. David Mitchell remained in federal prison in Pennsylvania. He'd served 5 years of his 30-year sentence. He wrote letters to his children regularly. Some of them wrote back. Some of them didn't. He'd become a model prisoner, teaching financial literacy classes to other inmates, working in the prison library, continuing therapy. He would be 73 when he was released, an old man, alone. But his children?
His children were thriving. Because that's the thing about betrayal, sweetheart. It doesn't have to define you. It can break you open, yes. It can shatter everything you thought you knew. But if you're strong enough, brave enough, you can take those broken pieces and build something new, something better, something true. Sarah had learned that lesson the hard way, but she learned it. One Saturday afternoon in May, 5 years after David's arrest, Sarah sat in her backyard with Emma and Lucas, planning Emma's wedding. "I don't want him there," Emma said firmly, talking about David. "I don't want him to walk me down the aisle. I don't even want him to know about it." "That's your choice," Sarah said. "Will you walk me down the aisle, Mom? You're the one who raised me. You're the one who was always there." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I would be honored." Lucas looked up from his laptop. "And I'll give a toast at the reception about how the strongest person I know is my mom." Sarah pulled both her children close, holding them tight. These beautiful, resilient young people who had survived their father's betrayal and built good lives anyway. "I'm so proud of you both," Sarah whispered. "We learned from the best," Emma said. That evening, after the kids had gone out with friends, Sarah and Robert sat on the porch swing watching the sunset. "Do you ever think about him? About David?" "Sometimes, I admit. Not as much as I used to. Mostly I think about how grateful I am that I found out the truth. Some women live their entire lives married to men they don't really know. At least I had a chance to start over." "Do you regret the 17 years?" Robert asked. Sarah thought about it. "No, because those years gave me Emma and Lucas, and they taught me valuable lessons about trust, about strength, about survival. I wouldn't be who I am today without those years." "You're an extraordinary woman, Sarah Mitchell. Well, Sarah Wilson now." Sarah smiled. "Sarah Wilson. I like that. A new name for a new life." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn pink and orange. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, David Mitchell was sitting in a prison cell paying for his crimes. Somewhere in Denver, Amanda was putting Ethan to bed. Somewhere in Seattle, Helen was helping Maya with her art portfolio. Somewhere in Indianapolis, Nicole was counseling trauma victims. Somewhere in Texas, Maria was tucking her twins into bed. All of them moving forward, all of them healing, all of them building new lives from the ashes of the old ones. And Sarah? Sarah was exactly where she wanted to be. In her own home, with her new husband, waiting for her children to come home, planning her daughter's wedding, proud of her son's accomplishments. Living a life that was real, honest, true. She'd survived the ultimate betrayal. She discovered that her entire marriage was a lie. She'd learned that the man she loved was a stranger. But she'd also discovered something else. She discovered her own strength, her own resilience, her own ability to rebuild. And that, darling, is the real story. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but the survival, the healing, the rebuilding. Because at the end of the day, David Mitchell's story is about deception and destruction. But Sarah Mitchell's story, Sarah Wilson's story, is about truth and transformation. Oh, sweetheart, we've come to the end of this incredible journey together. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of your own strength, please hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Drop a comment below telling me what part of this story hit you the hardest. Was it the initial betrayal, the trial, the forgiveness, the rebuilding? I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. And please, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's going through their own betrayal. Someone who needs to know they can survive and thrive. Give this video a thumbs up if you made it all the way to the end. You're a real one. Thank you for spending these 2 hours with me listening to Sarah's story. Remember, darling, betrayal doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. Until next time, this is your auntie reminding you that the truth will set you free. Take care.